Hi everyone, it's Smitha. I am here with a little review on the new Cosmic Brushes Undergrowth palette that's dropping in just a couple of days. It's been quite a while since I have really done much long form YouTube. I had a lot of plans for things that I wanted to do, and time always gets away from me. I do a lot more short form content on Instagram and TikTok, but I am going to try to pop on here when I can to do some more reviews. I'm just getting the hang of doing more filming, basically, and more kind of swatches and reviews style content. But anyway, this beautiful palette from Cosmic Brushes is dropping on Friday the 13th, and I always get so excited for Cosmic Brushes releases. I think the palettes are just some of the best curated palettes that I've really seen. I'm so impressed not only with the color curation, but the price point. I can't even get my mind around how they managed to keep these palettes so affordable and the formulas so good. So I have the palette on my eyes today, and I can tell you that from the experience that I had applying it, that this palette is no exception to the really high quality that I'm familiar with Cosmic Brushes. So I am gonna insert a few little clips of the video swatches that I did later, but I'm gonna go ahead and do some live swatches of the shimmers just because I know that tends to be some of the most exciting. And I am gonna just talk about a few little comparisons between this and the Natasha Denona Yucca palette, because I was seeing that there have been some questions that have come up with comparing Yucca to the new Undergrowth palette. Few differences, so I'm gonna hold these side by side. So obviously, you know, there's 15 pans in the Yucca palette. There's a few more, there's 18, or is it 18? No, 20 in the Cosmic Brushes. So you do get more shades. I also find that just, you know, you get a little bit more kind of range in tones. So you have a few more lighter shades in the Cosmic Brushes palette, and a few more deeper options. I find that in a lot of the Natasha Denona palettes, as somebody who has deep medium skin tone, sometimes I struggle to use as many of the mattes as I would like. My eyes are always drawn to those deeper mattes, but I find that a lot of the tones in the Natasha palettes are rather mid-tone, and on me they don't kind of pop as much as the super light or the super deep shades. And you have a need for those, obviously, but I just find that, you know, I don't get as much use out of those mattes as I do in some of the Cosmic Brushes palettes, and this was not an exception. I did find that, you know, the range was overall better. Another thing is you're not going to get the multi-chromes. So you don't have multi-chromes in the Natasha Denona palette. The ones that are in the Cosmic Brushes palette are truly special, and I am going to swatch them just so you can see them. So also the price point. So price point, this is about half the price, $32 I think, or $35, something like that, 28 pounds. And then Natasha Denona runs $70. So I'm not trying to say that this is a bad palette by any means, or that any of the Natasha Denona palettes are bad, but I'm gonna pick the Cosmic Brushes palettes pretty much always above the Natasha in terms of where my own preferences are. But there you have it. A couple other differences: you can take the pans out of the Natasha palettes, and these you can't, they're glued in. So that is one difference as well. You could think of it as a con to the Cosmic Brushes, but I think that there's so many other things that are positive about them that the pros outweigh the cons. So let's go ahead and get into it. Again, I find the shimmers in the Cosmic brushes to be very special. This is the first one. It's kind of this lighter, it's the lightest shimmer in the palette, and it is called Vegetation. I did use it on the inner corner, and it added a really beautiful inner corner highlight. Let's go ahead and swatch that. That has to be some type of chrome. I think that's a duochrome, but that's super pretty. It's got like a bluish silverish shift in it that makes it work beautifully on the inner corner. Then you have the shade Wilderness. This looks like kind of a goldy kind of greeny. Yeah, so pretty warm toned, really, really beautiful. I find the shimmers in Cosmic brushes to be smooth in texture overall. Next is one of the multi-chromes, and this is the shade Undergrowth. And super special multi-chrome. You have in this one a lot of different kind of multicolored flecks, which I think a lot of people really enjoy. So on top of just having, you know, a cool shift in it, you get a lot of different kind of colored sparkles in there with that really smooth texture. Some reddish, goldish, orangish specks throughout it. So that is the shade Undergrowth. Next is the shade Swamp, which is kind of more like, I would describe as like an antique bronze shade. This looks like a straight on shimmer to me. So that again is the shade Swamp, very aptly named. The next one is the shade Boogie. Now we're in kind of the second half of the palette, and Boogie is again kind of like a bronzy shade, maybe like a touch more gold in it. Yeah. So there you have Boogie. It's got some green shift in there if you can appreciate that in the swatch. Next is another one of the multi-chromes. This is the shade Fireflies. Again, super smooth texture. Has a bit of a sheer base, makes it really pretty for layering. And I should say, I use the two kind of most intense multi-chromes on the lid. So on this lid, I have Undergrowth all over, and then on this lid, I have Fireflies all over, so you can kind of see just how special they look on the lid, layered over matte shades. So this is Fireflies. The next is the shade Fungi. Fungi looks to me like a bit more of a kind of true gold. So that is Fungi. And then the last shade is Cordyceps. And that is what Cordyceps looks like. So now that I've had a chance to swatch all these shimmers, you can get a sense for, you know, how kind of beautiful and versatile they are. I will say, if I could change maybe one thing about the choice for these shimmers, is that I might have changed the amount of kind of goldy tones, but there's a lot of variety in, you know, the types of kind of greeny golds that you have here. That just is one sort of critique that I might make. But again, I just feel like, you know, there's so much that you can do with these, and they work so differently that I don't think it's a huge deal. And you get such a great variety of mattes that I think that kind of compensates for that as well. So now that I've kind of done some live shimmer shop swatches, I'm going to show you what the whole palette looks like swatched and get into the demo for these two looks. And then I'll come back at the end with some wrap-up thoughts.
Now on to the swatches of the whole palette, starting off with the first half and the second half. I can't get over how beautiful all these shades look swatched out. For the first look, I'm going to start off with the shade Herbarium and put it all over the crease. Deepen up the outer corner with the shade Fern. These are building really nicely. Then going in with the shade Nettle, and finally with the shade Bark over top of that, which is the deepest matte in the palette. I found that these built up really nicely from light to deep. Then I added those same shades to the lower lash line, and on the lid I used this beautiful multi-chrome Undergrowth, which is the namesake of the palette, and look how beautiful this looks all over the lid. I used the shade Vegetation as an inner corner highlight, and then I used this Cleona Fruit Lighter in the shade Tangy as my highlight and brow bone highlight. For my second look, I really wanted to use the grungy shades. I started off with the shade Marsh, put it all over the lid, then I deepened up the outer corner with the shade Sludge. Then on to my lid shimmer, I used the multi-chrome in the shade Fireflies, which is this beautiful multi-chrome gold. Then as my highlight for this look, I used the highlighter from my friend's collab, Andromeda and Ritual Defy. This is Borealis. I literally put it everywhere. And what I love about it is how smooth of texture it is, but it is such an intense highlighter. And these are my two finished looks. I love how they came out.
All right, now that I've had a chance to do a bit of an overview, do live swatches, show you my swatches of the palette all together, and some demo looks, we can go ahead and get into our wrap-up thoughts. I think this is another hit. I think it's obvious from the beginning that I adore it. At some point, I need to do a Cosmic Brushes kind of ranking video, which will be very hard to do, but it will also get me into pulling out my Cosmic Brushes palettes and using them again because I love them so much. Anyway, let me know what you think about this palette if you plan to pick it up. I do have a code again with Cosmic Brushes, so thank you so much if you use it. It is GLAMSMITTY, and I believe it saves 10%, 10 or 15%. But anyway, thank you for joining, and hopefully I will see you in a video very soon. Bye.